Let's talk about how podcasters can make money on Spotify. I mean, Spotify is the number 2 platform for podcasters after Apple Podcast. And in today's conversation, I want to give you an overview about the monetization process. Okay. So Spotify launched a new paid subscription platform that will give podcasters the tool they need to maximize their monetization. Actually, as Spotify, they actually bought over Anchor, and that was really fantastic. So podcasters can make money on Spotify with Anchor.fm by Spotify. And the cool thing is that they have a series of monetization models here. They have ambassador ads, they have new automated ads, and they also have paid subscriptions. So if you're a podcaster, you listen to me right now, you can make a lot of cash if you are able to structure your podcast the right way. One thing you need to pay attention to when you actually think, or when you're thinking about the revenue model for your podcast, is to think about 3 things. I want you to think about the RPM, the revenue per mile, per milli, not per mile, revenue per milli, and milli being 1,000. You can also think about sponsors. You can think about brand deals. Those are really important, okay? And so the average RPM, revenue per milli, on RPM is around $13. So if you are actually, $13 per 1,000 impressions. But if you are in certain niches that pay a little higher, you can actually expect to command like a large amount. One thing I want to say here is that you're not choosing a niche based on the RPM. You're not choosing a niche based on the popularity of the niche. You're choosing a niche based on your interest and the value you can add to listeners, right? It's really important. And one thing I want to say here is that as long as you are having a decent number of downloads per episode, you can actually make some good cash, okay? Now, of course, you don't want to actually put all your eggs in the proverbial baskets. You want to diversify your sources of revenue. So in addition to the ad sales, you can think in addition to the ad revenue, you can think about affiliate sales, you can think about course sales, you can think about Patreon, you can think about a large constellation of avenues where you can actually generating revenue. That's what we call avenues or revenue avenues. Okay. And so Spotify has an audience network for top anchor podcasters in the US, and ad buyers can now buy ads on your show and improve your potential to earn revenue. And based on our research, we see a lot of folks who are making upwards of $15,000 per month from affiliate sales, course sales, ads revenue, and Patreon support. It's just fantastic. Boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. We're going to have a wonderful show today about how podcasters can make money on Spotify. I want to talk to you about the approach you need to have right now if you're trying to make money on Spotify. So let's talk about the monetization methods for podcasters on Spotify, okay? The thing is that I need to understand, when we talk about Spotify for podcasters, as I said before, you had before like Anchor, that used to be the world's largest podcast hosting platform, has actually combined with Spotify for podcasters to create an all-new, first of its kind platform with everything you need to create and grow a podcast, right? So the thing here is that when you think about it, it's a great and exciting news for podcasters because you are basically going to earn more. What you have to do here is that you need to actually reposition yourself. So now that Spotify has partnered with Anchor, you need to reposition yourself. What am I trying to say here? The thing is, if you are currently if you're hosted on Anchor or Spotify, you probably have your podcast is linked with certain metadata. I want you to remember that word, metadata. So your podcast is linked with certain metadata. So things like the tags, the description, like it really, you are talking about the niche that your podcast relates to. What will happen here is that after the announcement, if you want to make money, you need to reposition yourself. I'm not saying you have to lie about your niche anymore, but you need to actually present yourself better. Let me give you an example. Let's say before you were doing beauty, right? You were a beauty podcast. So you talked about beauty products. You invite guests on your show. You actually talk about you do some reviews and so on and so forth. Now you need to reposition yourself. In other words, you need to narrow down the kind of niche you're in. In other words, you need to niche down. So we're talking about sub-niching. So if you're doing cosmetics before, maybe now you want to do nail products, or you want to actually do, you want to do makeup. So you got to figure out the best way to reposition yourself, because that's how you're going to make money. See, you have to understand, the more niche down you are, the more money you make. As they say, the riches are in the niches. The riches are in the niches. This is how you really make money. So reposition yourself right now. And one thing I also want to say also, when I say reposition yourself, go into your Spotify profile and adjust your settings. Things like your metadata, right? Your description, your title, everything that revolves around your podcast. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We're having a conversation about how can podcasters make money on Spotify. The first way to make money as a podcaster on Spotify is through ads. And on Spotify, it's called automated ads. And this is by Anchor/Spotify. The thing is that when you talk about those automated ads, they are just a new way to make money through Anchor/Spotify. They work through Spotify's audience network, enabling advertisers to connect with listeners who consume a broad range of content. And so these ads are not host read and are reserved for ad segments you would like to see in your episodes. So to qualify for the automated ads program, applicants must meet various requirements, such as having a unique listening experience and Spotify followers. So right now, what you want to do is you want to actually make sure that you qualify in terms of Spotify followers. Do you have, let me ask you a question. Do you have Spotify followers right now? How many do you have? Talk to me about that. And do you have a unique listening experience? What does that mean? This means that you are bringing something unique to the platform. Maybe your podcast format, maybe your podcast length. Maybe everybody's doing 5 minutes in your niche. You're doing 25 minutes, or you're doing 1 hour, right? So you got to have something unique to your podcast so that advertisers and listeners, for that matter, will be drawn to your podcast, right? You need to have something of value to add. And the thing is that one thing I need to say is that you want to apply for Spotify. You need to apply as a podcaster to Spotify's revenue platform as soon as you qualify. So what you want to do is right now, I want you to go into your Spotify account. You want to go into your podcast account and see if you qualify. If you qualify, Spotify will tell you. You will see a little green note that will say you qualify for the automated ads program. And if you don't see anything, that means you don't qualify. But you want to check this. You want to check your dashboard every now and then, so that as soon as you qualify, you can actually apply right away, and apply right away, because sometimes it takes it can take some time for Spotify to review your account and approve you. It's not automatic. So do it as soon as possible. So automated ads by Anchor/Spotify is the first way to make money as a podcaster on Spotify. The second way is paid subscription platform. So you have to use Spotify as a paid subscription platform. Spotify is charging people for like charging something on a monthly basis. And what Spotify is doing is they are actually distributing part of the subscription revenue to the content creators, to the podcasters. Okay. And so Spotify has launched a paid subscription platform that gives podcasters the tools they need to maximize their revenue and discoverability. So this feature allows creators to publish episodes to Spotify and other podcast platforms without requiring them to pay for the platform's subscription. And so for the next 2 years, until 2025, 2026, creators will be free to use the feature, and Spotify will introduce a competitive 5% fee in 2025. So through this platform, podcasters will distribute subscriber-only content across Spotify without affecting the quality or quantity of their episodes. And the amount you can make on Anchor ads and subscriptions varies depending on the size of your audience, the niche you're in. Okay, so this is kind of important, and also the length of your program, the length of your podcast. And one thing you need to pay attention to here is that don't try to change your niche. Don't try to change the length of your program to make more money. It doesn't work that way, because if your audience is used to seeing from you a 20-minute podcast every week, you trying to increase the length to, let's say, 30 minutes or 1 hour is going to may actually put off a few people, or you may lose subscribers. So the bottom line is you need to strike the right balance And this is the key word here. You need to strike the right balance between the revenue model that you can actually aspire to, the revenue goal you can aspire to, and what your audience is willing to give you. In other words, your audience must see value at all times. You must give value to your audience. So if you're able to give value to your audience, then you'll be rewarded like beyond compare. So you'll be rewarded in terms of ad revenue and also in terms of other stuff. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. I'm having a conversation with you about how can podcasters make money on Spotify. I want to talk to you about how to expand Spotify. I want to give you a few steps when it comes to expanding your Spotify audience to attract advertisers. Okay. So while advertisers look at various factors such as audience size and frequency, it is essential to attract and expand your audience, right? And due to the increasing popularity of podcasts, their advertising revenue is expected to grow at a robust rate of, let's say, 15 to 25% in the next 10 years. Okay, so this is, we're talking here about Spotify. So if you want to actually grow your Spotify audience, you want to really go back and work a lot on your target audience. I want you to really redefine your target audience. Pay attention to your target audience. Who is your listener persona? You need to define that. You need to have a clear idea about your ideal persona. Who do they look like? What is their geography? What is their demographic? What is their age? Those things are important elements, okay? You need to have a plan to actually identify your target audience and actually go after your audience like crazy. You need to actually go like crazy means what? It means you are adding value over value over value over value. You're constantly adding value. You're constantly adding value. And if you can add value the proper way, you are going to make money, whether through ads, whether through brand sponsorship, whether through other forms of revenue making goals. I mean, this is totally possible. Okay. So your target audience is the number one. Then now we're talking also about the user experience. After defining your target audience, you need to actually work on the user experience. It's all about adding value. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. It's all about adding value to your audience. So the user experience, the UX must be really great. When we talk about the user experience, we're talking about the audio quality of your podcast. We're talking about the quality of the guests that are coming on your podcast, if any. We're talking about the quality of the topics you are choosing within your niche. First of all, you have to be in the niche though. If you leave your niche, you will lose subscribers. So the quality of the topic and the quality of your delivery. Okay, so make sure that your show is easy to find and listen to and has a good logo. Mobile-friendly websites are also significant when it comes to increasing your podcast discoverability. Another element, if you're trying to expand your Spotify audience, you need to think about the visual appeal. So the visual appeal and written elements should communicate the same message and tone, right? So your platform should also have a cohesive look and feel. So when we talk, what are we talking about here? We're talking about if you have a brand, let's say you have a brand and you are trying, like your podcast has a brand and you're trying to attract the right audience, the right advertisers also on Spotify and even outside Spotify. And when we talk about visual appeal, everything must be nice. I mean, I know this sounds like cliche, but it's true. People click on a cover art or art cover. They click if the cover is nice, if the design is nice, if things are beautifully aligned, they will click on it. I mean, when was the last time you actually went to Netflix, for instance, and you saw a bunch of videos, and you would click on a video with a nice cover art and the nice description. You will read about it, and see, the thing is, all of us are doing this reflexively. We're doing this subconsciously. So make sure that the visual appeal of your podcast art or podcast information is really fantastic. If you want to increase your audience, you also want to think about collaboration. You want to cross-promote with other podcasters. This is a great tool. It's a great move that can help you expand your audience. Having guest appearances on other shows can be a way to attract more listeners. So when we talk about cross collaboration or cross promotion. We're talking about you being a guest on other podcasts and you having other guests on your podcast. And this works in a fantastic way. As long as you're doing everybody's doing his or her job in terms of promoting each other's podcast, you are going to grow your audience on Spotify real fast, because it's just that one of the people recommend to their friends and family podcasts they love and to which they have subscribed. Okay, so but when the podcasters themselves are helping each other, this makes things a lot easier and a lot faster too. Let me give you a few pro tips before we close to this conversation. The thing is that we're talking about how you can make money on Spotify. And we actually have an entire show in terms of how to get started with Spotify. Because first of all, before you can make money on Spotify, your podcast has to be listed on Spotify. On Spotify directory, right? We have an entire show on that topic, so I'm not going to talk too much here. I just want to let you know that Spotify is one of the places to be. You got to be on Spotify. You cannot ignore Spotify if you're serious about if you are dead serious about podcasting and you want to make a ton of cash and actually also increase your popularity through the arts. You got to be on Spotify, because Spotify is number 2 after Apple Podcasts, and you definitely want to make sure that you have the right position there as well. And the thing is that you have to actually list on Spotify. And so you need to understand, to list on Spotify, you basically are going to, it takes about, 10 minutes? Nothing really complicated though. You have to provide your email, your data, and Spotify will ask you to verify that you own the podcast, because Spotify is really concerned about IP infringement, intellectual property violations, copyright violations. So they want to make sure that you own the podcast that you are submitting to them. And so they will send you a 6-digit or 8-digit code to verify. And then you also need to provide the RSS feed, the RSS link. So basically you go to the sites where you are hosting your podcast right now, and you will get the RSS link from that website and submit it to Spotify. And once you do all these things, you should be good to go. And Spotify will review your submission within 48 hours. And if everything checks out, they'll just, they will actually approve you. And so it's nothing really complicated. And once you're approved, you basically, Spotify will distribute your podcast to a series of people, and then you can start making money depending upon the amount of downloads you have and other stuff. But overall, it's just pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. And in today's conversation, I explained to you how podcasters can make money on Spotify. I spoke about the overview, the approach, the steps, and now the pro tips. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I'll talk to you later. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.